Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis, plus no hot takes, just thoughtful, intelligent 49ers discourse. And today we're going to be discussing comparing Brock Purdy's mobility to Hall of Famer Steve Young, and it's more comparable than a lot of people think. One media member comparing rookie D-tackle Alfred Collins to Bryant Young. I have some thoughts there and some updates and realistic expectations for the recoveries of both Mustapha and Brandon Ayuk. So this is going to be an abbreviated podcast, one of the shorter ones that we're going to have, but that's with the hopes of having more content to push out, another podcast in the next couple days. So we're going to keep this one sure, in addition to the fact that we are in the doldrums of summer, that 40 days per Christian McCaffrey, it's 40 days away, not 40 days off between OTAs and training camp starting in mid-July. But one of the things that topics I was thinking about the past couple of weeks was how Brock's mobility has improved from his rookie year to 2023, his MVP finalist year, to last year, where he was definitely using his legs more. We don't want to say taking what the defense gave him, but if a play broke down, if protection broke down, if the initial, first read or two wasn't there, good coverage by the secondary, Brock was not hesitating to take off. And that is something that a lot of people will equate to Steve Young in his heyday, right? At BYU, great college career, was a mobile, scrambling quarterback. Tampa Bay, that franchise when he was drafted in the NFL, was abysmal. He was running for his life. In between, he had a stint with the LA Express, and he was always mobile, more of a runner than a passer until his maybe third or fourth year in San Francisco after the trade, when he took over the starting quarterback responsibilities after Joe Montana got hurt in that NFC Championship game against the New York Giants. Steve Young is someone that grew into being a passer, but I think it's fair to say that Brock Purdy is someone that is growing into being a scrambler. I'm not going to say a runner, and I don't think either quarterback, even Young in his heyday, was a runner the way that Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, Michael Vick, maybe even to a certain extent, someone like a Randall Cunningham going back into the 80s and 90s. Young was making plays happen with his legs, but he was always a passer first under Bill Walsh and George Seifert and Mike Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. We saw the potential that Brock Purdy had in his MVP finalist season, in 2023, during the playoff run against the Packers, against the Lions, picking up big yardage and big first downs when needed. But in the regular season in 2023, he only ran the ball 39 times for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a 3.7 yard per carry average. He did pick up 15 first downs. And again, nothing with Brock Purdy and nothing with Steve Young were really designed or ever designed running plays like you see with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and others that I mentioned earlier. I mean, we haven't really seen a designed run, a specific run from a 49er quarterback. If you want to count Trey Lance in his 1.5 starts with the team and coming in at spot duty as well, really from Alex Smith. And the thing that's jumping out at me is that home playoff game against the Saints, which they won, last second touchdown pass to Vernon Davis. But in one of the touchdown drives leading up to the end of the game, he had that student body left sweep with Joe Staley out in front of him as a blatant and specific designed run for Alex Smith. Now, under Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, there might have been more during the regular season in 2011 and 2012 before he was benched for Colin Kaepernick. And then obviously there was runs that you saw. I should have forgotten about him with, Colin Kaepernick as well. But a lot of those were broken play type scrambles as well, in addition to some read options that was taken away somewhat in the playoffs and especially the Super Bowl against the Ravens. So as much as we want to think about Steve Young as a runner, he was more of a scrambler, picking up yardage when plays broke down. And that's what Brock developed into going from 2023 to last year. His carries were up from 39 to 66. His rushing yardage up from 144 to 323. Touchdowns more than doubled from 2 to 5. Had a 4.97 yards per carry and more than doubled first down pickups from 15 to 33. Brock, I don't know how much more there is to unlock with Brock's running. Now, if you want to say he could be in the 70s, maybe mid 70s in terms of rushing attempts, maybe get near 350, 360, 370 rushing yard wise, and maybe punch up those touchdowns, maybe 6 or 7. Okay. But he, obviously Shanahan is not drawing up read options for him. Shanahan, the only designed running plays that he's going to call up for Brock are QB sneaks. But I want to share with you Brock's 2024 stats that I just read off: 66 for 323 and 5 touchdowns, a 4.9 yard per carry average with Steve Young during his time with San Francisco. Now there was, the first 3 or 4 years he was playing spot duty. A bunch of years he didn't play the full season, whether it was 9, 10, 11 games. There was 5 seasons where Steve Young played either 15 or 16 games. And I'm going to take the averages there, and we're going to compare it to what Brock did last year. So in his 5 seasons of playing 15 or 16 games, starting 15 or 16 games, Steve Young averaged 64.6 carries a year for 378 yards, 4.4 touchdowns per year, and a 5.9 yard per carries average. Look how comparable this is. Brock last year, 66 carries. Young averaged 64.6. Yards wise, Young at 378 had 55 more total yards than Brock Purdy, which is essentially 3 yards more per game. Brock had 5 touchdowns. Young averaged 4.4. Some seasons he had, 5, 6, or 8. Some he had under that, but averaging 4.4. And his yards per carry for Steve, 5.9, a full yard better than Brock. Steve was the more athletic quarterback by far. Probably overall, given his time in the offense, a better processor, more accurate, stronger arm, better agility, faster runner. What they both have, though, or Steve had more, and it was funny. I was watching yesterday on NFL Network. They had top revenge games in the NFL. Favre going up against the Packers, Peyton Manning going up against the Colts when he was the Broncos, and the 94 game, Young at the Chiefs. And it was Montana's revenge game in which Kansas City won 24-17, And that game, the Niners had 4 turnovers. One was a fumble by John Taylor at the end of the game. Well, it was about a little over 2 minutes left in the game. He fumbled at midfield as San Francisco was driving. Otherwise, Young had 2 interceptions and 1 fumble on a scramble. Young had the knock up until 1994 of giving the ball away at inopportune times. And there's a segment of the fan base that knocks Brock for that as well. But in his first 3 seasons, he's only thrown 26 interceptions. I think he played like high 30s in terms of, more than that. Well, yeah, high 30s in terms of games. He started 16 2 years ago, 15 last year, and about, 5 or 6 in the regular season his rookie year. But, people will point to the Viking game on the road in 2023 through 2 interceptions on the last 2 drives. The Chiefs game in 2024 last year, we had an interception down inside the 5, a really, really bad interception where the Niners were down 10, didn't come away with any points. And the Chiefs went down the field to make it a 17-point game. So I think the moniker of, the big turnover, I think right now is probably more fair for Young during big games than Brock. I mean, look at his playoff run during his rookie season. Good game against Seattle, efficient game against Dallas, even though he didn't throw a touchdown, and then got hurt against Philadelphia. And then Green Bay game, good game. Detroit game, threw one interception, and had a touchdown and no picks in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. But the comparisons in terms of them as quarterbacks. Now, again, I'm not saying Brock is anywhere near as athletic as Steve Young, and Steve Young's obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback, the second best quarterback in 49er history. Could Brock wind up finishing his run as the third best quarterback in 49er history? It's very possible. And if he wins a Super Bowl or two, he'll challenge Young in terms of that number 2 spot behind Montana. But it's not just the running where there's a fair comparison for these players. Talk about passing. And obviously, Steve Young won 2 MVPs, was All-Pro a bunch of times, Pro Bowler a bunch of times, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl MVP, highly accurate, threw for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. But Brock's average the last 2 years, because year one was not a full season, 67.5% completion percentage for 4,072 yards, 25.5 touchdowns, 11.5 interceptions, averaged between 23 and 24. What I did again for Steve Young, because there was a bunch of years that he only played, 2 or 3 games when he first joined the team, or 10 or 11 games missing time due to injury. Those same 5 years where he played 15 or 16 games that I took rushing averages for, here's his passing averages. Average 67% completion percentage, 3,731 passing yards, 28.8 touchdowns, and 10.2 interceptions. Touchdowns, a little over 3 more per year than Brock. 1 less interception per year than Brock, although Brock's throwing for about 340 yards more per year. And the completion percentage nearly identical. So there's more, I think, to both of their games in terms of comparable aspects. And I stand by what I said earlier. I think Brock was farther ahead in his pro development as a quarterback coming out of Iowa State, year 1, year 2, than Steve Young was, even though he went to the USFL and started with the LA Express and played for a very bad Tampa Bay team. And even starting with San Francisco, first year, the Niners missed the playoffs. They went 10-6, had a good season, and Young had a pretty good season. But there was definitely some learning that Steve had to do in the 49ers West Coast offense under Bill Walsh that was equally probably as difficult as Brock Purdy needed to learn under Kyle Shanahan. Now, Brock learned for the first 10 weeks on the bench and then came in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo against the Dolphins and made his first full start against Tom Brady and the Bucs the following week and rolled off, 7 or 8 consecutive wins before losing in the NFC Championship game to Philadelphia. The Brock Purdy to Steve Young comparison at this point in Brock's career is fair with an asterisk. And the asterisk is you're comparing him to an all-time great, a top 10 NFL quarterback of all time, and a Hall of Famer. But I think you can see the processing. You can see the accuracy. You can see the generally protecting the ball that both quarterbacks do. And Steve Young had his issues in big moments, in big games, right? And Brock has had some issues as well. I think they're wildly overblown, but he's had some. And you can see the running ability, the scrambling ability, the buying time with his legs, looking downfield. I think one thing Brock does do is I think he looks downfield more so than Young did. Young would be, the dropping back if Young wasn't there, or Young Taylor or Taylor Rice, whoever the Brent Jones, whoever the first 2 reads were, he had the ability or the predilection to take off quicker than Brock does. Brock will buy time and look downfield maybe for that extra second or so longer than Steve did. But the mobility aspect, I think, is much more comparable than people think. And if you can get 80%, 70 to 80% of Steve Young out of Brock Purdy, that's a win, not only for what he's drafted, but also for the contract that he got. And I'm going to discuss that in a separate podcast, so what expectations are going to be for Brock Purdy now that he got his $53 million a year. But the comparisons don't stop there. There's another Young that is being compared to, and that's Hall of Fame defensive tackle Bryant Young, and Rob Rang of Fox Sports compared second-round defensive tackle Alfred Collins out of Texas to Bryant Young recently. Now, Bryant Young was with the 49ers for 14 seasons, a first-round pick out of Notre Dame in 1994, one of, the three major, well, we'll call it major draft picks that made an impact for San Francisco that year, with fullback William Floyd, who took over the fullback duties midway through the season from Mark Logan, and linebacker Lee Woodall. And of course, obviously, all the free agents that came in between Ricky Jackson and Richard Dent and Ken Norton and Deion Sanders and Toy Cook and Tim McDonald. And the offense was generally, the same offense that they brought back the past couple seasons. But so when I first heard this, I was like, is he one, that's a ridiculous comparison to make for a player who hasn't even stepped on the field yet. Now, I'm just coming off of comparing Brock Purdy to Steve Young, but I'm backing it up with, we can understand the statistics and the rushing and the passing, the accuracy, the anticipation, and how they're buying time with their legs. In terms of Alfred Collins, he was nowhere near the college player that Bryant Young was. Played 4 years at Notre Dame, had, I think, close to 14 or 15 sacks his last 2 seasons. And then coming into the league, played 14 years for San Francisco, 6'3", 290 in terms of measurables, a 4-time Pro Bowler and 4-time All-Pro, came back from that horrific lower leg injury where they had to put a titanium rod in his leg in his 30s, came back to play until his year 37 age season, finished with 89.5 sacks. He had 8 or more sacks 5 times for more than a third of his career. Alfred Collins, that's a lot of expectation. I don't think anybody's really buying into it. Anything that's being put out there in the media, articles, or especially on Twitter, X, Reddit, TikTok, when people are talking for a minute or two about something crazy, I don't think anyone's expecting Alfred Collins to be the next Bryant Young. I think as fans, we're excited about what Alfred Collins and CJ West can do, along with Robert Saleh coming in, and Nick Martin and Upton Stout and Marquise Siegel at safety once he gets healthy. What this rookie class could do for this team defensively, because they need a big time and Michael Williams, shouldn't forget about him. Excuse me, big time defensive turnaround compared to what, Nick Sorensen was doing with the squad last season. But if Collins and West can just help plug up the run defense dam, because the floodgates were open far too often the last 2 months of the season, that I think we'll feel good about the trajectory of these two rookies into year 2 and 3. But Alfred Collins, when you compare Bryant Young, 6'3", 290, Alfred Collins is 6'6", 332. He's a very large man, a much bigger man stature-wise than Bryant Young. And when I was going through the stats and looking back at some past players, I'm like, well, maybe Dana Stubblefield, who was Defensive Rookie of the Year in 93, talking about the Niners hitting gold, 93 Stubblefield, 94 Bryant Young on the line. They never really had a young, dominant defensive end on that front, which is why they had, Tim Harris and Richard Dent and bringing in Ricky Jackson from the Saints. Alfred Collins, really big dude. More of probably a run stuffer than what you're going to get in pass rush. Same with CJ West. I think that's okay when you have a Jordan Elliott you can rotate in, when you have probably Kevin Givens is guaranteed to make the team. Kevin Givens, I think, is guaranteed to make the team based on his contract. Not sure about Kalia Davis. Evan Anderson's going to be more of a run stuffer. So I think they're expecting the rush to come from the outside. And when you get into third downs, it's not like Alfred Collins or CJ West, or both of them, are going to be on the field, right? Michael Williams may kick inside. Bryce Huff may go outside. Or even Yetur Gross-Matos may be the two inside rushers, along with Michael Williams and Bosa and Huff on the edge. So you don't, if you get any first or second down pass rush from West, or really any of these defensive tackles, consider it a win. But Collins is a player in college who started only 28 games over 5 years at Texas. 64 total games he appeared in. He started less than half of them. 141 total tackles, 7 total sacks. Bryant Young had as many, or just about as many, his senior year at Notre Dame. I think he had 6.5, and then I think maybe 7.5 or 8 sacks the year before. So that, like when I said, maybe his comparable more is Dana Stubblefield, I thought maybe of the 2 D tackles between Stubblefield and Young, maybe Stubblefield was the bigger stature type of guy. He played at 6'2", 300. Maybe that was big back then. 300 compared to 290, what Bryant Young was playing at. And maybe, his weight maybe got up there a little bit more so in later years. Remember, he was with San Francisco for 5 years, went to Washington for 4 years, and came back, I think, his last 3 seasons again with San Francisco. So Stubblefield really isn't the comp. And what we should all be wary about, for whatever this is worth, is that NFL.com's comp, based on scouting combine, people watching tape, pros, cons, measurables, everything, for Alfred Collins this year coming out is Javon Kinlaw. Now, Kinlaw came out of South Carolina, obviously a bad pick, right? Everything probably about what the Niners did that offseason was bad. Trading DeForest Buckner, extending Eric Armstead, drafting Javon Kinlaw. Kinlaw came out of South Carolina with knee issues. And since he had the ACL reconstructive surgery, was it 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, had a bounce back year with the Jets and, signed a decent contract. I don't know if it was with the Commanders or the Vikings. He's not with the Jets anymore. And thankfully he's not with San Francisco, but that's NFL.com's comp for whatever it's worth. Expectations for Alfred Collins, I'm not going to say minimal, but let's say moderate, because he's still a 2nd-round pick. CJ West was taken in the 4th round. We know the issues with the D-line. We know the issues with the run defense. And Mykel Williams is going to be part of that, right? What John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan saying about Mykel Williams, played through an ankle injury at Georgia, built like a man, only 20 years old, can fill out that frame even more. The best edge setter, in their opinion, in the draft this year. So they got rid of Leonard Floyd and kept Arturo Gross-Matos for that reason, that specific body type that they want at defensive end. And then you supplement that with trading for Bryce Huff, who's going to be your 3rd down pass rush specialist off the edge. Moderate expectations for Collins and CJ West, but for Alfred specifically, to see similarities in his game to Bryant Young, I think was off. As much 49er football as I've watched my entire life, I'd have to go back and watch Bryant Young highlight clips or a reel to really get a feel for, what he was. I think Bryant Young was, and this is high praise, also built more in the mold of an Aaron Donald than Bryant Young being built like Alfred Collins, right? Just given the size. Alfred, the D tackle from the Rams, played under 300 pounds his entire career. Right? I think he was only like 6 feet 6'1". So Bryant Young was taller than Donald, but I'm not seeing the comparison yet. I mean, nobody should be seeing the comparison yet. And again, let's use that percentage. If you can get 70 or 80% of a Hall of Famer like Bryant Young from Alfred Collins during his time in San Francisco, I think that's a mega win. I'm not betting on it. He hasn't even signed his rookie contract yet. So I think we should pump the brakes with a lot of this stuff. And I don't think the comp is Bryant Young. And let's conclude today's podcast staying on the defensive and offensive sides of the ball in terms of ACL recovery. The Niners, Shanahan and Lynch both came out and said everybody but their ACL squad will be ready for training camp in mid-July. And that's Malik Mustapha. That's Brandon Ayuk. That's rookie quarterback Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. That is Curtis Robinson at linebacker. And I'm not sure if there is another one that I am forgetting about. But in terms of Mustapha and Ayuk, I'm sure you guys have seen the video circulating on social of Malik Mustapha squatting and then running, basically kind of running an arc around the field, around cones from left to right, and then one from right to left. He had surgery in January, so he is 5 to 5.5 months out of that surgery was just an ACL. But it was good to see that Mustapha put something out there, right? Compared to Brandon Ayuk, the only thing he's put out there on social is some cryptic bitching and whining about something or other. I don't even remember what it was at this point because it was so nonsensical. But he hasn't, to my knowledge, posted anything about his recovery. We've seen video of him getting married. We've seen some video of him at training camp, and we heard wide receiver coach Leonard Hankerson and Kyle Shanahan say that Ayuk has taken on a leadership role in the team, kind of coaching up the wide receivers, especially the young wide receivers. And as he's been out, and you've even seen him like in a helmet, no pads, but on the line and kind of jogging, through not even a route, like a quarter of a route. And Ayuk had surgery in November. So let's say he's 2 months ahead of Mustapha in terms of rehabilitation, but it was a more intensive surgery, tearing his ACL and MCL. I'm not sure. I don't recall if there was any meniscus damage there either. Now, the Mustapha video has led a lot of people to think, there's a chance he could be ready for week 1. I wouldn't bet on it, guys. I really wouldn't. Now Mustafa's younger than Ayuk. He's built like a Greek god. That doesn't mean anything in terms of the joint, right? The ACL graft taking. I mean, I'm sure the muscles are the way that he works out, Mustapha, I'm sure the muscles in the leg are probably where they need to be 5 months post out. And there still is, Couch has been saying there's still about 3 months left to go until the season starts. The season starts the first, beginning of the second week of September. I'm recording this on June 22nd. So you got June to July to August to September. Not quite 3 months left for even additional recovery and strengthening of the knee and the leg to take place. But I think for both of them, the most logical path to the roster is starting out on the PUP list, which means they're out for the first 4 weeks of the season. They're out for September. After that, they can open up their 21-day practice window. So I anticipate both being back sometime in October, let's say mid-October, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you can have, let's say let's say one player is closer than the other. Let's just say it's Mustapha. You can keep Mustapha on the 53 and just deactivate him those first 2 or 3 weeks. But then you're eating up a roster spot at safety. Then you'll probably only be rolling with 3 active safeties on your game day roster. So there's, I think, roster value and logistical value and health value to keeping them on the PUP list to start the season. You're able to put one more receiver on the roster in place of Brandon. You're able to put one more safety on the roster in place of Mustapha. And as I said last podcast, I think at this point it was a couple of weeks ago, anybody clamoring for a Justin Simmons or any other free agent safety, while it's not out of the realm of possibility, right? It's entirely possible. I think the signings of Jason Pinnock from the Giants and Charlie Grant from the Falcons, those are your 2 veteran safeties to go along with Jair Brown and George Odom and Marquez Siegel when he's healthy. And you have Jalen Mahoney, who was an undrafted rookie free agent last year. I think they have the quantity and the quality that they can roll into they should be rolling into the regular season with 4 safeties. And then when Mustapha becomes healthy, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to want or need to do with one of the, which I'm anticipating 4 safeties that they start out with on the 53-man roster. And the same thing, with receiver. I think there's enough receivers, if you're including veterans like Russell Gage and Isaiah Hodgins, who were signed to future contracts, that the Niners can get away with Brandon Ayuk starting out on the PUP list, even if someone like a DeMarcus Robinson, who they brought in from free agency from the Rams, starts out suspended for the first 3 games due to a DUI. And I'm still shocked that hasn't been announced either way yet. I think the numbers that the Niners have at both the receiver and safety positions are better than people think. And I think the one person that the Niners are sleeping on most, or fans or the media, is Jason Pinnock. You don't bring in a 2.5-year starter from the Giants and not give him every opportunity to win the starting spot next to Jair Brown, or even have him penciled in right now. That's how confident I feel about Jason Pinnock being a starter week 1 when the Niners head up to Seattle to kick off the regular season. So that concludes the podcast for today. Like always, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule to make us part of your listening and watching routine if you're checking us out on YouTube. The next podcast will be in a couple days. Like I mentioned, this was an abbreviated podcast. The next podcast will be more of the same as we're trying to push out some additional content as we are all waiting for any additional Niner news or anything to sink our teeth into until we get to training camp in mid-July. But until now, we speak again. As I mentioned, I'm recording this on Sunday, June 22nd. Enjoy Game 7 of the NBA Finals, Indiana at Oklahoma City, a much better finals probably than any of us thought, or really than any of us deserved, considering these are not two marquee markets. But it's been some really good and exciting basketball, and I will for sure be watching tonight. But between now and when we speak again, everyone, stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.